What's up, guys? It's Mitchell Berry with the Berry team, and today we want to go over what it's like to buy a home specifically in the Indiana, Kentucky area. So sometimes we have clients who don't know the steps, especially if you're a first-time home buyer or if it's been a while since you've gone through the home purchasing process. So we want to make that as easy as possible on you. So we're going to run through all those steps. As always, though, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us, or if you're buying or selling a home anywhere in the United States, we can help get that ball rolling for you. So feel free to reach out to us at 812-315-3850. Let's dig in. So first of all, when we're talking about the home purchasing process, normally with clients, what we love to do is sit down and go through a buyer consultation, basically seeing what you want, what's important to you, and then take you through these steps in person and make sure that you have all your questions answered. At the end of that process, you might say, buying a home right now is not for us. That's completely fine. You might say buying a home is for us, but not right now. That's also completely fine. Or you might even say, hey, I want to buy a home, but you're not the person I want to use, and that's fine as well. So as long as we can take you through that process, give you good information that you can use, that's our goal. And then if you want to use us, then that's fantastic for us and for you. And we'd love to help you through that process. So let's run through the rough steps, though, of buying a home in this area. So first of all, the first step, the most important step, arguably, is getting pre-approved with a reputable, knowledgeable lender. There are a ton of lenders out there. You can use whoever you want. We do have recommendations a lot of times on people that have been proven to do a great job with communication, products, down payment, interest rates, etc., and that answer their phone on a regular basis. So a lot of these agents or lenders and agents, but lenders out there, especially if they're working for a bank, sometimes will turn their phones off in the evenings and the weekends. Some banks are really good about not doing that. Some mortgage brokers do that as well, and some don't. So it's one of those things that we need to be careful that whoever we're going to use is going to give you the best terms, is knowledgeable about the process if we run into any issues, as well as is easy to get a hold of. So we can connect you with one of those lenders, or if you have one that you're already working with, then that's fantastic as well. But you'll hop on the phone with them, they'll ask you a few questions, ask for a few documents, and from there they'll give you a pre-approval letter if you're able to purchase a home. If not, they can tell you why and give you a rundown on some things that you might be able to do in order to set yourself up in the future for that. Once you get that pre-approval letter, though, that'll give you an idea of what you can afford. And the nice thing too is sometimes maybe they say you can afford a $300,000 home, but you don't want that payment. They can break down some estimated payments for you as well. And then you might decide, hey, I only want to spend $250,000 on a home. Important thing about that, though, is we have that pre-approval letter ready to go, because when you purchase a home and write an offer on a house, the seller and their agents want to see a letter stating that someone is saying that you're probably good to go to get that. So having that already done, fantastic. Nice thing too is then when you find a home you want to purchase, we're not scrambling to get that done, especially if it's in a competitive situation. We've already got that first step out of the way. From there, we can start sending you home, set you up on alerts that fit your criteria. When those homes come through, you can reach out to us and we'll set up that showing, whether it's a for sale by owner, listed with us personally, or with another agent, it does not matter. We can get you in that home, set up a showing, and see what you think from there. Now, once you find a home that you love, this is kind of when the clock starts ticking. So we're going to write an offer. Depends on what state you're in. Indiana and Kentucky are a little different, but you're looking at about 6 to 8 pages of a purchase agreement, as well as a few other documents. We're going to look over the disclosures, make sure that there's nothing that they know of that's wrong with the property that we're not willing to deal with. And then we're going to offer them a certain purchase price. And then the other big thing that people talk about is closing costs. Now, your closing costs wrap in a lot of different things. So most people think that's just your lender fees. It is not. Lender fees are in there, your appraisal is in there, your title charges are included in those closing costs as well. And that's just the title company is making sure that the house is clean and clear, free of judgments and liens. And then they're going to issue you with a title policy, usually, depending on the situation. There are some circumstances where buyers don't want that, but 99% of the time, that is what you want. So a title insurance policy stating that if someone does come back and says, hey, I have a lien on this house, you have an insurance policy to help through that process. That's included in your closing costs as well. And then things that we call prepays. So your homeowner's insurance, you're going to want to pay a year of that up front, as well as put money back in an escrow account, usually for your property taxes. So those amounts are going to be included in those closing costs as well. Now, you can pay those out of pocket along with your down payment at closing. Or the other option that a lot of buyers will do is what a lot of people will say, they wrap it into their loan. Now, what's happening with that is essentially you are telling the seller, I will offer you this price, X amount of price, say $250,000. but I want you to pay up to $6,000 in my closing costs. Now, this does a couple things. One, you're really offering the seller at that point $250,000 for the purchase price minus the $6,000 in closing that they'll be paying, but it's less money out of your pocket. So when people say they wrap it into the loan, a lot of times they will up their purchase price to offset that to give the seller what they're wanting. But if the house has been sitting on the market and it's not a competitive situation, sometimes you can negotiate that in with a lower purchase price depending on the circumstance. So those are the two main things. And there are a few other items in that purchase agreement that we always go over when we're making an offer on, do you want a home warranty? Do we want to prorate taxes? Do you want to pick up taxes immediately? Do you want to ask for one installment? All those things will factor into that, as well as personal property, meaning what items of personal property are staying with the home. The personal property is anything that is not a fixture. It's not attached to the property. So your most common ones are your kitchen appliances, your window treatments, your bathroom mirrors. And then if there's anything out of the norm that the seller is willing to leave or that you want to stay with the property, we're going to write that in the document as well that's going to be submitted with the offer. We write that up, we send it over to the seller, we give them a deadline. In this market, usually it's been anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. That can change depending on the circumstance though. And then the seller has the option to do three things. They can accept your offer as you wrote it. They can reject it and say, we don't want any part of this. Or they can counter that offer and say, we're good with these terms, but maybe we want a higher purchase price or pay less closing costs or do something different with taxes. Once you officially agree on all those terms, you're under contract, or what people call pending. Now from there, that's when the clock starts ticking, which I referred to earlier. So then we have timelines that we have to hit. Your closing time frame is typically around 30 to 35 days. So we want to make sure that we're getting all the documents that are asked for by the lender over to them quickly, as well as the title company. And then we're going to start our inspection time frame. Your inspection time frame, you've got about 14 days normally, and that's to get your inspections done and provide a response. The other time frame that we're looking at automatically is your earnest money, or what some people will refer to as your good faith deposit. That's essentially saying, hey, I'm writing a check that's going to be held by usually the title company or one of the real estate brokerages. And this is just showing that I have full intention of purchasing this home. That is still your money as the buyer. So when you go to closing, you will see a credit on that closing statement of your earnest money. So it's still your money. It's going towards your final settlement charges. The only way you lose that is if you breach the contract. So say you wake up a few days later with cold feet and you back out, the seller is going to keep that money because you took their house off the market and did not complete the purchase agreement like you said you were going to. So usually, depending on the contract, you've got a couple days to get that earnest money deposit in. We've got 14 days to get inspections done. We can help schedule those inspections for you. The report comes back to you and us. And at that point, we can decide what are we wanting to ask for to be fixed by the seller. Now, there are some terminology items here that we're going to want to discuss. So the main thing being a defect. So when you get an inspection report back, sometimes these reports can be 60 to 80 pages long, and they're picking out every little thing that they can find in the property, which is great for you. That's what we want. But what we want to ask for from the seller to be fixed is what we call a defect. Now, State of Indiana defines that defect as something that is going to be a health and safety issue to the occupants of the home, or if left undone over time is going to devalue the property. The most common items like that are your electrical issues, fire hazards, plumbing leaks are a big one, because if you left that undone, it's going to create issues with the house, or your health and safety ones like mold, certain items like that. What's not included in that are your items like a slow draining sink, or even you could argue that insulation in the attic or lack thereof is not a defect. Now, ultimately, you can ask for what you want and you can leave some of those items off. It doesn't really matter. You can take the house as it is. Not a big deal either way, as long as you realize that these are the items that probably need to be fixed either now or sometime in the near future. It's really important for your knowledge, and then you can tackle some of those after the fact, or we can get the seller to fix those. Now, when we submit an inspection response, it's the same thing. They can accept that, they can reject it, or they can counter back saying, hey, we'll fix these items, but we're not going to fix these items. Now, the important thing to note here is that if we're asking for true only defects and the seller is not willing to fix those, 99% of the time, if you want to walk from the deal, you can get your earnest money back in that case. Now, if you're asking for items that aren't defects, or you're being unreasonable, or they will agree to them and then you still walk, that earnest money is probably going to stay with the seller. If you have questions on that, be more than happy to dig into those little items as well. During this process, we're also going to do the appraisal. The lender normally orders that. An appraiser is going to go out to the property, and they're basically going to do what we call a CMA, comparative market analysis, something very similar, where they look at other comparable properties that have sold to say this house is or is not worth the price that you're purchasing it for. Normally, those appraise just fine. If they don't, there's a few options. You can walk from the purchase agreement. You can bring more cash to closing, or what's most common is the seller will lower the price to meet that appraisal value that the appraiser gave. Those are your big hurdles. The other thing is you want to get homeowners insurance. Typically, you've got about 14 or 15 days for that. Get that ready to go. And then you head towards the closing table in about 30 to 35 days. We sign all the documents there, then you officially own the home. The other thing to note is when you make that purchase agreement, though, one line in there talks about possession of the property. So here locally, a seller can ask for up to an additional 30 days of possession after closing. Not all states do that. It's kind of unique. We have sellers who move in from other states who are very confused by that at times, but that is a thing that is pretty common around here. So you close in 30 to 35 days, but you may not be able to move in until 30 days after that. But again, that is negotiated when we write the original offer to send to the seller. If that's the case, you're not transferring utilities until you take possession of the house. And then when you take possession of the house, you can switch over those utilities into your name, and then you're officially a homeowner with your brand new home. So that is the boiled down quick version of it. We would love to sit down with you on Zoom or in person to go over more details. As always, text or call us 812-315-3850 or directly the cell phone number of the Barry Team agent you are working with. But as always, hit us up with any questions and we will catch you soon. See ya.